The Mad Genius Archive subscribe so you do not miss the stories that shape the century. Today, 3 essential questions about the atomic bomb, the fear that the atmosphere might ignite, and the paradox of Oppenheimer. If you care about clear, no-nonsense truth, let us begin. Is a single wrong calculation enough to set the atmosphere on fire? The question sounds like science fiction, yet it was once considered very seriously. When human beings unlocked nuclear energy, a tiny tail risk always lingered. If the reaction spread into nitrogen and water vapor, could the atmosphere burn? Today, we know the answer is no. The temperature and pressure do not allow it. But the very act of asking that question signaled a new century. Technical power must be matched with discipline, oversight, and preparation for disaster. This story centers on J. Robert Oppenheimer, a man who never won the Nobel Prize. He steered history more than many who did. Under his leadership, brilliant minds created the first atomic bomb, an artificial dawn called Trinity on July 16, 1945. Redirected history. From that moment, every theory of global security had to be rewritten. Nuclear deterrence and the shadow of mutual assured destruction spread over both war and peace. In the minutes ahead, we will answer 3 quick questions. First, how was the atomic bomb made, in both technical and organizational terms? Second, why did serious scientists once fear the atmosphere could catch fire? Third, what is Oppenheimer's moral paradox, and what legacy did he leave behind? Cambridge Crisis and the Poison Apple. In 1925, Oppenheimer was an awkward graduate student in the laboratory. Patrick Blackett pushed him toward hands-on experiments, the very skill he lacked most. He grew despondent and called his sleeping spot the miserable hole. In a moment of extreme distress, he placed a chemically treated apple. The act was discovered. His family intervened. Cambridge required therapy. This is not just sensational gossip. It was a breaking point in a powerful mind. Göttingen, where he found the language of physics. In the summer of 1926, under Max Born, Oppenheimer felt reborn. His cohort included Dirac and von Neumann, with Heisenberg in the hallway. Within 2 years, he published more than a dozen papers. At 23, he defended a German language dissertation on the continuous spectrum. He transformed from the clumsy student at Cambridge into a commanding theorist, from Moonshine to the neutron chain reaction. In the early 1930s, Rutherford dismissed nuclear energy as moonshine. Einstein also doubted it, seeing no evidence it was feasible. But 2 developments changed the board: the neutron and Szilard's idea. The neutron, discovered in 1932, carries no electric charge, so it can slip into a nucleus more easily. In 1933, Szilard reasoned that if fission produced additional neutrons, the reaction could sustain itself. On January 29, 1939, news that Hahn and Strassmann had split uranium was confirmed. Oppenheimer first objected, and then quickly accepted the experiment. E equals mc squared suddenly had practical meaning, for electricity or for a bomb. The Einstein-Szilard letter shifted the gears of history. In August 1939, Einstein signed a letter to President Roosevelt about uranium. A uranium committee was formed, later upgraded to IS-1 in 1941. In May 1942, Oppenheimer was invited to coordinate a critical technical area. A few months later, General Leslie Groves recruited him as scientific director. Why choose a theorist without a Nobel Prize? Because he could read, understand, and connect every branch of science. He could gather people and lead them, a rare talent. Groves joked, Oppie could talk to everyone, except about sports, Los Alamos, and the colossal organizational challenge. The laboratory had to be isolated, secret, and safe for civilians. Oppenheimer proposed Los Alamos, a desert site by the Jemez Mountains, with ideal isolation. The first forecast was wildly optimistic. 6 scientists and a few engineers, In reality, more than 600,000 people worked across the project's supply chain. 760 of scientists contributed to the wider effort, about 302 of them at Los Alamos. Los Alamos became an operating system for knowledge. Break problems apart and then fuse them into one device. Enrich uranium to 35. Produce plutonium to 39. Shape explosive lenses. Synchronize detonators. Everything had to be coordinated, the pivotal problem. K-effective, the effective neutron multiplication factor. If K is less than 1, the reaction dies out. If K equals 1, the reaction sustains itself. If K is greater than 1, it runs away and becomes a bomb. There were two main paths. The gun-type design, for uranium-35, fired two subcritical masses together. It was simple but material-hungry and required highly enriched uranium-35. Note that natural uranium contains about 0.7% uranium-35, not about 7%. The implosion design for plutonium-39 used carefully timed explosive lenses to compress the core. It demanded far more complex engineering, but used less material. An Urchin initiator of polonium-10 and beryllium seeded neutrons at the exact moment. Supporting technologies included neutron reflectors, higher density through compression, and microsecond-level detonator timing. One odd wartime detail. Spermaceti oil from sperm whales was used to lubricate the gun-type bore because synthetic oils dried out. Trinity and artificial dawn. The night before the test, a bare high-explosive trial had failed. Oppenheimer read the Bhagavad Gita to steady his nerves. They worried about both outcomes, a dirt and a blast that worked too well. A tail risk had been considered. The explosion might trigger atmospheric fusion. Calculations later showed that temperature and pressure would not allow a self-sustaining spread. At 5:29 and 21 seconds on July 16, 1945, gadget detonated at Trinity. Roughly 6 kilograms, which is about 13.2 pounds, of plutonium produced a blast of about 20 to 25 kilotons of TNT, commonly cited as about 21 kilotons. The desert shone like daylight, and trinitite formed from molten sand. The mushroom cloud rose to about 7.5 miles, which is about 12 kilometers, and the shockwave was felt for hundreds of miles, which is hundreds of kilometers. Thankfully, the atmosphere did not ignite. The world, however, was changed forever. Hiroshima and Nagasaki numbers and conscience. On August 6, 1945, little boy fell on Hiroshima with about 15 kilotons. Deaths by the end of 1945 are often estimated around 140,000 to 150,000. On August 9, 1945, Fat Man fell on Nagasaki with about 21 kilotons. Losses are estimated at about 70,000 to 80,000. More than 95% of the victims were civilians, the majority women and children. These numbers are facts, and they are a moral warning. Oppenheimer became the emblem of a paradox, the maker who also regretted Super, the Tsar Bomba, and the logic of deterrence. In 1949, the Soviet Union tested an atomic bomb, and the balance shifted. The United States pursued the hydrogen bomb. IV Mike in 1952 yielded about 10.4 megatons. IV Mike was about 400 times Trinity. The Tsar Bomba in 1961 was about 50 megatons, about 2,000 times Trinity. Deterrence matured into second strike capability and the nuclear triad of intercontinental ballistic missiles, submarine-launched ballistic missiles, and bombers. The paradoxical aim was to maintain the capacity to strike so that it would never be used. Oppenheimer opposed the Super on moral grounds and because it accelerated the arms race. That stance contributed to a painful 1950 for security hearing. The 1950 for hearing glory and the price. His past was probed. Left-leaning associations and Gene Tatlock. There were secret wiretaps and a cascade of security accusations. In December 1953, his clearance was suspended. A national hero became a suspected figure amid the Cold War. His honor was restored only decades later. He continued to call for arms control and international negotiations. He said talks should have begun right after Trinity. In 1967, Oppenheimer died of throat cancer at the age of 62. Legacy and lessons for high-risk technologies. Lesson 1. Price the fat tail before you optimize. Imagine the worst case first. Lesson 2. Build layered safety switches in technology, operations, and institutions. Lesson 3. Practice ethics by design, placing constraints inside the system from the start. Lesson 4. Maintain minimal transparency and control the export of dangerous technologies. Lesson 5. Rehearse failures with red teams, tabletop drills, and assume the largest plausible error. These principles apply to artificial general intelligence, synthetic biology, and geoengineering. The greater the power, the more discipline must lead it. When technical power outruns discipline, do not ask, act. If this was useful, please like, comment, subscribe, and share it with someone who needs to hear it. See you in the next episode about small decisions that carry very long tails of risk. In the end, progress grants great power, but it does not grant immunity from responsibility. Thank you for watching, and please think carefully about the future.